Sir David Frost. How are you, my old friend?
Very well indeed, and delighted to be here.
I should think so too. You've interviewed these two before, of course, haven't you?
Yes.
Many times.
I interviewed Diana in New York as well as London, and Michael and I have done lots of shows together.
Yes, well, I mean, it wasn't always interviews, it was sort of doing comedy.
That's
Yes,
right.
All that.
shtick.
We worked together a lot.
Shtick.
Anyway, yeah, shtick.
What was the first interview you ever did on television? Can you remember?
It was with a scientific farmer in East Anglia, and I was on this new East Anglian programme in the college vacation. And this guy I was interviewing on location, and he said, "Look at that field there. Look at that field there. You see that field there? The insecticide spray that they're spreading on all those different insecticide sprays there and there and there. None of them have ever been used before, and they will be absolutely fatal to any bird, animal or insect who comes into contact with the vegetables." And I said, "Well, that's wonderful. But isn't it possible, if they've never been used before, that they might prove absolutely fatal to every human being who comes into contact with the vegetables?" And he looked amazed and said, "We'll cross that bridge when we come to it."
Right, but let's talk about this. I mean, of all you did thousands of interviews, but the Nixon interview has a particular place I know, well, in television history, but certainly with you as well. It must have been the most extraordinary moment that you've ever had as an interview, wasn't it?
Yes, I think it was. There have been some amazing ones since Schwarzkopf just after the First Gulf War, and some other very moving interviews with people. And Sammy Davis, of course, was... Sammy Davis, at the end of the programme, he said... And he'd been fantastic. He'd done 9 songs, as you know, with the programmes you've done, with 9 songs and 40 impressions and everything. And he said at the end of the show, "I must thank you." And I said, "Nonsense. I should thank you, because, I mean, it's just fantastic." And he took off his watch and he said, "When I give presents to people, I like to give them a present of something of mine, not something I've bought." And he gave me this incredible, and you know what incredible diamond watches he had. Yeah. And he gave me, at the end of the show, it was so moving, this fantastic diamond watch. It should have been the other way around. And for 12 years, it was my most favourite possession until it was stolen from a hotel room, and so on. So that, so that there were lots of other memorable moments, but everybody had predicted we'd never get Nixon to go as far as he did, as we pressed him to go. Even we didn't really expect him to go as far as he did, really.
Just put it into context. I mean, to put Watergate, that was the key, that was the thing that really made the interview. Now, just to explain very briefly what Watergate was, remind people who have forgotten or didn't know. What was the issue? What were you after?
Right, very good question.
Thank you.
Do I get a doctorate for this? But the thing was that Watergate was 5 people, plus 2 others who'd not been revealed, who went into the headquarters of the Democratic Party to bug the Democratic Party. They were Republicans from the committee to re-elect the president. There were 5 of them that were named quickly. There were 2 others that would never have been found out if the cover-up, which Nixon did, had worked.
Right.
And so basically, his criminality lay in the cover-up. He probably may not have known about the raid until afterwards.
Yes.
But then that was the cover-up, and nailing him on that was what we had to do.
Now, you approached this because you had to get it right. I mean, this man wasn't a fool. He was a lawyer, he was a politician, and a very adept one as well. And you had to think very carefully about your approach to him.
Yes, and we had to, for instance, there's no point in asking him any question that you couldn't prove the answer, because he would never give in. For instance, he would never have volunteered the fact that he knew in advance about the break-in. He didn't, doesn't it? But even if he had, he wouldn't have volunteered it unless we could prove it.
Yes.
And so we had to go exactly as you say, with the things that you could prove. The 17 times when he said he hadn't discussed money with John Dean, money to keep people silent, then going through the 17 examples of that, which was odd. It was an odd feeling, that, because I was doing the 17, but it's not true. Here you say, get the money. Getting the money is the first thing, and so on through all of these. And like each one, he almost sort of. It was almost like boxing blows.
It was like a cross-examination, wasn't it? Yes. Like a criminal court.
Well, he said on the first day of Watergate, he said, well, you of course, are doing the job for the prosecution, which is your right, and I must do my job for the defence. And he said, and I treat what I say here on oath.
Now, it was remarkable enough that you at POM got the interview, and that in itself is an extraordinary story. And people said you would never do it, but you did. You said something once said about Charles de Gaulle. What was that?
Oh yes, a guy in London was going to go for an interview with Charles de Gaulle during the last war, and he said, "I'm going to go and get an interview with Charles de Gaulle," and the people in the office said, "Oh, forget it, he's here, he's ashamed, he doesn't want it, he won't do an interview." And the guy said, Schönbrunn said, "Let de Gaulle say no." Which is a lesson for all of us in our business. That's where we're approaching people. Don't argue yourself out of a scoop. Yeah. See if it'll happen. Yeah. Let them say no.
No, you did, over 12 days you did this interview. Yeah. You sat down with him 12 days and went through this extraordinary welter of stuff. And at times your team got quite depressed, didn't they? They thought you were losing.
Yeah. In the middle of the run of 12 programmes, I thought, were getting unconscionably worried or depressed and so on. Sure, 2 or 3 sessions hadn't gone perfectly, but others had gone really well, and the session they were worried about, we had got the quote that when I got it, I knew this was a headline, a big headline, which was when Nixon said, "If the president does it, that means it's not illegal."
Yes, I remember that.
You know, which was just headlines. Yeah. People said, this is the end of the American Constitution and the system. Yeah. So they were concerned, but I was still confident, the old Pollyanna and so on. They had a point that 2 or 3 sessions had gone wrong. We did need to get a bit more time out of Nixon, because we got 24 hours, but it gone a bit slow. So we tried. We wanted to get another. We wanted to get another 4 hours to get everything in. So I took Nixon's chief of staff, Jack Brennan, out to lunch, and I said, "We need another 4 hours, and we don't have any money left to pay for it." "Oh, right, if you don't have any money left to pay for it, then I don't know." And I said, because, you know, if we don't get the extra 4 hours, we're going to have to cut out a few things, like China, which, of course, was the last thing that Nixon wanted to be cut, you know, because that was his biggest triumph. Yes. And so he said, "All right, I'll give you the 4 hours." So that was to get the extra time. But basically, as the 8th and 9th sessions were Watergate, and overall we were winning on points, but it was Watergate that was really.
That's a test. This is what you've been building up to, in a sense. This is where you were going to ask him the direct questions about his culpability. This is an amazing moment, I think, in all the. Did you feel in that moment, and it does happen in some interviews, you had him?
I felt we nearly had him, yes. I mean, it was a heart-stopping moment, the most heart-stopping moment, as you suggested there, because I'd expected him to reply, and when he said, "What would you express?"
Yes.
I knew I'd got to ad-lib something for him at the moment when he was more vulnerable, when there was more chance of getting the truth than there ever would be again in his life.
He also did a very clever thing. He put the clipboard away.
That's right. I had a I had a clipboard in my hand, and I wanted to indicate, you know, that this wasn't a set-up job, and so I threw the clipboard on the floor, just to show it wasn't a set-up job, and then went into.
Now this again. This is the.
And he did address all those points.
Well, he did, and but let us see the moment when you see the man. I mean, his entire career disintegrate in front of him, or through his own lips. In a sense, I mean, you were very intimate one with the other, weren't you? Yeah. I mean, at the end of it, did you like him? Had you changed your opinion?
I think that the thing is that you could have liked him, except for, at times, as it were, been sympathetic at times. But I could only ever be empathetic, really, because one was very aware at that time that there were 30 people who were in jail for doing his bidding, you know, yes. And so you felt sorrier for them, really, than you did for him. But you did have the feeling of some tragedy and so on, and feeling empathetic, but he always kept this division away from himself.
Yeah, I was going to ask, because I saw the play and it's very interesting, because he's on top most of the time, this great facade he has, being able to bounce all the questions. But in the end, did you ever feel that he wanted to say that? There was something he actually really did want to get it out of his system, which is the way you put it to him in the end, you know, now is your chance.
No,
or do you think he just wanted to squash you?
I don't think he wanted to do that at all, because the play, which Peter's done very skillfully, puts the Watergate as the one last day rather than 2 days. In fact, it was 5 hours of going on about Watergate, and it was only going on and on and on that led him with reluctance to that point. Because Nixon was like someone, he'd only admit something, he'd only go further out on a limb if that was the only way to go. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? So if he couldn't go in again, he'd go further out on the limb, and getting away from there was tomorrow's problem. You know?
He was very, I mean, the other side of him too, which you saw, he was very socially inept, wasn't he?
Oh,
awkward.
He had no small talk at all. From the very first time when I was negotiating the agreement and editorial control and so on, and everyone had said he had no small talk and so on and so forth. But, and he always insisted on 5 minutes of small talk, of which he had none, before you got to the actual session. Yeah. And so I'd seen a thing in that day's paper about Brezhnev, so clutching at straws. I mentioned Brezhnev to him, and he said, he said, I wouldn't want to be a Russian leader. They never know when they're being taped. And this extraordinary day when we were walking into the main studio, the big room of the house we rented, Nixon and I, and as we walked in, Nixon, who tried to be one of the boys with the cameraman and say, you know, we're all hard hats together and these flaky journalists and all that stuff. And as we walked into the main room, he tried to be one of the boys with me, and he said, did you do any fornicating this weekend? I mean, he was trying to be one of the boys, and he got the word wrong. Because lovers don't call themselves fornicators any more than freedom fighters call themselves terrorists, do they? It's not a word you use about, yes, I've been doing a bit of fornicating lately.
What was your reply, David?
I said, I never discussed my private life. Here we are. And we were at the two chairs. But I mean, he always had that thing of never realising the dramatic irony of what he was saying.
I'll tell you what's interesting, watching that. I mean, it's to be reminded. I mean, how long have you been in television? Nearly 50 years, isn't it now?
Yeah.
You see, eh?
And rather like you.
Well, this is true. Have you come to any conclusions about what's changed in those 50 years?
What's changed in those 50 years? Well, if you want to know my answer to that, you better phone this number. It will be 90p.
Well, it's been an extraordinary career, and that's been a reminder of it, actually. I mean, and again, you can't imagine somehow that would happen again, that you'd have that same kind of chance, indeed, to get that kind of interview and create that kind of drama and that kind of moment. And that was watched by, 45 million people?
Yes, that was just in America.
In America. Yeah. Hell of a figure.
And I mean, just the highest audience for a news interview in history over there.
Well, and it's available now, that interview. You can get on DVD, and also the book that you've written.
Yes, Frost Nixon book is...
that's right.
Is zooming into the store. Well, I hope it's zooming out.
But zooming out. The opening chapters of that, where you describe, as you described tonight, the build-up to it all is absolutely fascinating and riveting. David Frost, thank you very much indeed. David Frost.